Hello, and welcome to Return to Regalia, an Underland Chronicles reread podcast. I'm Una,
And I'm Mike.
and today we'll be covering chapters 25 and 26 of The Curse of the Warmbloods, in which the questers fly home and confront Naviv. But before we get into that, welcome to the podcast, Mike.
Oh my gosh, thank you guys so much. It is an honor to be here, and I mean that from like the bottom of my heart.
No, it's so great that you could finally be on an episode. It's been a long time coming. Do you want to tell us a little bit about like how you got into the series and when and what you thought of it?
Yeah, so one of the main things how I got into the series, I think like a lot of us was around like that 2000, like early 2000s era. We were like in third to fifth grade.
Mm-hmm.
We were all bookworms, and I was really just looking for something to like just I don't really know. I was reading like the Da Vinci Code in third grade, so I was really just looking for something to like mentally engage myself. I stumbled across Gregor the Overlander. I really didn't know what it was about initially. I was in foster care at the time, so I was really looking for like a comfort series. And despite all the themes that are in this book, it ended up becoming a huge comfort series for me. And I remember like waiting like year per year, like for the next book to come out, just going to the library and typing in Gregor, just trying to see if they got it in stock. So yeah, definitely around that time.
That's awesome. Yeah, what kind of like drew you in? What struck you about it that made you want to like keep reading?
At the time, we were in school. We had just gotten done reading The Giver in class, and it was really like putting such an important role on somebody that was in my particular age demographic and realizing that, hey, somebody your age does go through complex, like intricate feelings that are complicated to navigate, especially if you've ever like had to interact with like a foster care system. Those are brand new kind of adult feelings that you have to deal with almost immediately when you're put in a system like that.
Mm.
Luckily, I was very fortunate, but it was one of those things like I was looking for somebody who could relate to not having every parent in the household and just dealing with that sort of struggle, but was able to escape, almost escape to somewhere that isn't necessarily the best place to go, but is still an escape in its own right. So, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds great. Do you think that we should get right into these chapters? I'm really excited.
Oh man, I am ready because I have so much to say. My Solovet agenda is here. Oh yeah, one more thing I want to put in. I
Yeah.
am also team Rip Red is daddy, and I am also team Hamerith. What an amazing pairing that
Fuck
is. You totally
yes.
Yeah, you definitely red pilled us on that. That was a sandwich pilled, I might say. That was a genius thing that I didn't notice in my queerness as a young kid that I noticed now that I'm just like, oh yeah, yeah, period. That's it. That's canon and you can't tell me otherwise.
Perfect. I'm so glad I'm just like bringing this agenda to the world. I'm spreading the word. I have some Ham agenda stuff later. I'm really excited to get to it.
I'm excited for you to get to it. We'll spill the tea, but I'm ready to get into it. Let's go.
Alrighty, where we left off, Ripred had just put forth the theory that the cure for the plague is in regalia. Chapter 25 begins with Luxa insisting that that can't be true. Ripred demands that if it is true, Luxa has to send the cure to the rats first. She gives him her word and he orders them to fly home. He and Lapblood will go back to the rats to tell them what's happening. Gregor asks what they should do with Hamnet and Frill's bodies, and Ripred tells him they have to leave them here, but since the Starshade will grow back, it'll make a good final resting place. Ripred tells them to get going and not to forget Temp, since he might have saved them all with his theory. Gregor suggests that Ripred spread that information around in hopes the Warmbloods will stop being mean to the crawlers. Ripred says, I will become the biggest bore in the Underland, as I will talk of nothing else, which is just great.
Oh, he can never be a bore. What do you mean? Yeah, definitely one of the things that I really would love. I wish I haven't 100% sure if they ended up doing this so later on in the future of the series, but like I really do hope that like this puts the crawlers a little bit high up on the respects here because one of the things I remember them saying is they've been there long before the humans and they'll be there long before that, like long after they're gone. So they're like the chroniclers of like
Yeah.
history more so than like I would say sandwiches because they have like an
Mm.
unbiased like mentality on what actually occurs in history down there. So the weird lack of like disrespect towards the crawlers is kind of insane, especially when they're the only ones able to survive during all this.
Yeah, I really like that. I really love the theme of the crawlers being like, they have longevity, is what Vicus says about them in the first book, I think. And it comes back.
Exactly.
Everyone says their goodbyes, and Luxa, Gregor, Temp, and Nike fly back to where they first met up with Luxa, Aurora, and the Nibblers. When Hazard sees them, he asks about his father and Frill, and Luxa breaks the news to him that they died fighting the Cutters. She promises that they didn't want to leave him, but they couldn't help it. Hazard starts to cry, saying it's just like when his mother died. Luxa tells Hazard that her parents died too, and that her mom and his dad were siblings. Hazard says he doesn't have a sister, and Luxa says that if he comes back to Regalia with her, it could be like they were siblings. Hazard cries for his dad and Frill, and Luxa hugs him and tells him Regalia isn't so bad. Hazard remembers how Vicus told him he lives in Regalia, and Luxa agrees, saying Vicus will be happy to see him. Hazard asks if Luxa will be his sister the way Boots is Gregor's sister, and Luxa says, "If you will have me." He asks if she can ride on Aurora, and Luxa says yes, and maybe he'll even find his own bat to bond with someday. I love this part so much, just because, like, Luxa and Hazard just met each other, but she's already like, we can be siblings, like, no one else is going to take care of you, so I'm going to bring you back to Regalia and you can be my brother.
God, yeah, she it's one of those things where like you could definitely tell during her time in the jungle that she matured in some way, that she really had to take stock within herself. And it's, I mean, more than ever, one of the themes of the story is kind of pushing adulthood and pushing like this like parentalization on kids far too young to take that responsibility. And you see that she navigates that in such a strong way. And this is going to be reflected later on in the series. And I think this is a pivotal moment for Gregor because he kind of gets to actually see what explaining death looks like, and how he's going to be able to navigate that in his own particular way with someone in his particular age demographic. That also being said, my main note that I had for this entire section was just 3 words. Fuck Paul Bomer. How dare you? I know that's 6, but like, dude, come on, bro. Like, I'm sitting here trying to catch a vibe, like trying to actually like write down notes for this section. And here he comes with like the saddest voice for the most adorable cinnamon roll that is Hazard.
Yeah.
And it just yanks your heart out of your chest. It just, the entire time, like when he says, we'll put some audio clips here, but like, it is definitely one of the most heart-wrenching sections of the book for me. Like, not even like, I mean, Hamlet's death was horrible to witness and horrible to go through. And I'm thankful that Hazard wasn't there to see that. But just having to like watch him struggle with arguing against Luxa to staying in the forest, kind of, and then having to also deal with the fact that he has no one. It is heart-wrenching, and Paul does such a good job with this section.
I agree. I've listened to the audiobooks so many times, I can think back and like imagine exactly how he says these lines, and I know exactly what you're talking about. Like the way that he does Hazard's voice is so devastating.
His large green eyes filled with tears. Like when my mother left me. She didn't want to go either, but she had to. To Regalia? Said Hazard. He seemed so lost. I live here in the jungle. I want my father and Frill, said Hazard, beginning to sob. They take care of me. My grandfather lives in Regalia. He said I could visit any time I wanted to.
Like, who are you, sir? Go somewhere.
As the group gets ready to disembark, some mice appear and give them food for the journey home. Luxa tells them she'll never forget the Nibbler's kindness and promises to always be their ally. She takes off her crown and gives it to them, saying that if the Nibblers ever need her help, they should send it back to her with a Regalian scout, and she'll know what to do.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, I was just like taking notes for book 4, like trying to schedule out like what chapters will go with what episodes, and just like every single scene in book 4 is so good, but the part where the crown like gets delivered to Luxa and Gregor is just like the greatest little like ending to a chapter.
Another heart-sinking moment, like a stomach-sinking, some like stomach-chilling moment.
Yeah, I can't wait to get to that. Like, honestly, that whole book is just like my favorite.
My anxiety for that book is absolute. Like, I literally could not, I had to pause the audiobook so many times because I just could not get through. Like, it was so hard getting through it, but we'll get there when we get there.
Yeah, we definitely will. The remaining questers take off and speed back to Regalia, knowing that every second counts if the cure is being kept a secret. Gregor asks Nike what she did the whole time while flying above the vines while the rest of them walked, and she says she was trying to break the prophecy. Gregor thinks they've figured it out now, and Nike says if they got it right, it'll cause an uproar. She says, most humans and their allies will be ashamed. Their enemies will say it only confirms what they suspected all along, that humans lie and will do anything to get what they want. The awful thing is, no one will be truly surprised. And I think that this is, like, really relatable, because I think that this is, like, what a lot of people feel when our government does something really atrocious. Like, it's really awful, but also no one is surprised because we've been doing awful stuff for, like, a really long time.
For sure. To liken this to a real world event, very recently, I remember in Puerto Rico, there was like an issue with water. And then it was discovered at some point later on, there was like entire like warehouses and storage units just full of water that was not handed out to the citizens of Puerto Rico during that time. And it's just very like, it's very like, hey, yeah, nefarious stuff goes down. And I think the commentary that some of the people will be ashamed. I'm not so sure about that. Are we sure these are the same regalians that like were crying over flea powder being given to the Nars? I
Mm-hmm.
personally think there will be factions of people with hearts that will be like, yo, what's up with y'all having like, the cure stocked away like this? Mainly because it's affecting the humans. I don't necessarily think they're going to truly care about like interspecies relationships unless it's with like the bats and the nibblers.
Mm-hmm.
We see time and time again that like the higher ups in regalia are more so worried about saving face than they are about like actually maintaining peace within the land. At least that's how I look at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I tend to agree. And that is such a interesting like example because that's like literally what happens in this. 'Cause that's like really chilling, honestly, to think about just
It creeps
how,
me out.
yeah, like just how closely it aligns with our real world is just like too much.
Some would say it's prophetic.
Oh my god, yeah. Gregor thinks about how, even though he's not an Underlander, he feels kinship with the Regalians. He doesn't like how they put him and Ares on trial after they spared the Bane, but after Nerissa saved them, most of the humans saw reason, so that was more like a misunderstanding. On the other hand, he's always seen the rats as the bad guys, with Ripred and Twitchtip being the exceptions. The narration says, the idea that the humans could be as bad as the rats, or even worse, threw him for a loop, but was he truly surprised? He remembered the council's attempt to deny the rats the flea powder. No, he couldn't say he was. I think that this book does such an excellent job of like setting up this lesson that Gregor learns, and it really like sticks the landing at the end here. Like all throughout this book we've been getting hints of like, well, the rats really aren't the bad guys all the time, and like the humans aren't the good guys all the time, and we keep picking up on these clues, and then with the reveal at the end of this book, it's just like how Nike says, like, it's a plot twist and we're kind of surprised, but also looking back on everything that we've learned so far, it lines up with like what we know about the Garden of the Hesperides and, all that stuff. So I think that it's just like it sticks the landing so well. I'm really impressed.
Oh, it absolutely does. It definitely does a really good job at like helping kids with, especially like within our age demographic at the time, at least begin to question like authority in a way that like is more like introspective. It
Mm-hmm.
makes you wonder like how complicit you were in the beliefs that you were instilled upon at a young age. Because we learn in like later on in the series that like from birth, like they're teaching their kids that like, yo, the rats are bad and vice versa. And then we learn the overarching narrative of what they call humans in general down
Mm.
there. And you just slowly start to learn that like the story isn't as black and white as it's put. It's a lot more gray. No pun intended. It's a lot more it's a lot more just it's a lot more complicated. And it is a really good job at sticking that landing. I have to agree that she does an excellent job at continuing to do this theme in every single book, upping the stakes as she does it.
Yeah, exactly. Like she keeps building on it and like complicating matters even more. Like we start basic and we just like keep heaping on layers of like what is happening in the Underland. Yeah, it's genius. It's expert.
Oh, and Naveed finna get it. Hold up. Naveed finna get it. Oh my gosh. Girl, like I have the memes that I made for this. Like I have so many memes that like if I could like put memes in things like in an audio, I would. But like the Cardi B meme of her asking how convenient something is when she walks. I can't wait to get there. Y'all gonna turn up. But like, oh my God, what an amazing like she's so boss.
Luxa's voice cut through the others like a knife. I expect it shall be highly effective. I expect it will cure the plague.
How convenient is that? Wow, how convenient is fucking that?
I can't wait. She's about to queen it up. Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Oh, and the thing that you said about like we learn in the next book what the humans are called by all the other creatures, that's got to be like one of my favorite scenes in the whole series is like the scene with the scorpions where they learn that the humans are called killers. Like that is such a chilling scene. Yeah, the way that Hazard like talks about it is just like it's so creepy and good.
Who know? Because like for all we know, like that is what Hamnet refers to. Like Hamnet had referred to like the Regalians. Like
Mm.
he had went mad. He had committed such a horrible atrocity that I wouldn't even want to like associate myself with humanity, and that's shown with how he flees it. So it's like I would adopt the same language. I would, and another. It's just it blows my mind that after the Garden of Hesperides, that like Hamnet was the only person to be like, I don't really know about how we're conducting business here. Like this is kind of messed up. Was this even it was a peaceful day, I think, and then she just felt like going on a little trip to an apple orchard and just messing things up and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. So it really does add that like air of nefarious, like a nefarious air to like regalia. But you have to understand that the whole entire civilization was started from colonialism and like imperialism. So like it was kind of doomed from the get
Yeah, absolutely.
with how they conducted business.
Mm-hmm.
Friendly tribe. Okay, I'm sure the tribe was friendly, and I'm sure the way you guys are telling that story is definitely not like in any way sandwich washed at all.
You're right, and you should say it.
Like that's why I said if Gregor was like 16 when he fell down there, like he would have had like a little bit of a high school education. He would have been like, I don't know, what's y'all's policy on trade? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, that's he's gotta learn over the course of these books to question the stories that he's being fed by the Regalians. Yeah.
Big facts. Because I mean, what Luxa didn't even know about what had happened with like the plague, right? Like she had learned about it like while she was like after everyone found her, right?
Right. And she also hadn't been told the story of the Garden of the Hesperides, which is just like
Which is
erasure.
pretty crazy to not want to fill in the future leader of your society on every single thing that past leadership has done before you acquired the crown. It's almost as if someone has like a nefarious like desire to see whoever acquires that crown to fumble it, but that's just, neither here nor there. Why wasn't there a search part? That, you know what? We'll get there.
After a while, the bats land at the Arch of Tantalus to rest. When Gregor notices Luxa isn't eating, he tells her that she should because they can't stay here long. She reveals that she's been thinking about what Ripred said about the humans using the plague as a weapon. She's still not completely convinced the humans would start the plague, but she thinks that if they get back and find that Naviv has found a cure while they were gone, that'll be the proof that they need. When the bats are ready, they take off again. Gregor tries to sleep on the ride, but he keeps thinking about the battle with the cutters. The narration says, he could call up very specific images of his sword as it severed the life of ant after ant. Who were the ants, anyway? Not just animals, not just a natural force. Ripred had talked about them as intelligent creatures that had formed a clever battle plan. Did they all have names? Did they have parents and children and friends? Who exactly had he killed? And this is actually something that Audie and I talked a bit about on the last episode. We were talking about just like we don't really know much about the ants. Like we basically just know what Ripred tells us right after the battle when he's like, oh, the ants are just like a hive mind. But like, are we supposed to just believe that? Like, what does he know?
Yeah.
So it's interesting that Gregor is thinking about this, like, who did I kill? Like that's so scary.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely agree there. One of the things I think you guys mentioned in previous episodes was a theme regarding shoes, and not only just in this particular like book, but in the series. And this is where I think one of those themes really comes into play, because right now, you have Gregor currently in Hamnet's shoes, also now mentally in Hamnet's shoes.
Oh, hell yeah.
And also almost thematically, you have someone who has been, let's keep it a buck, manipulated by the higher up military leader to go out and commit some BS in the name of saving their people. And this is the second time this has happened by a my agenda is here. Solovet is an op, but like she is a fed, she is an op, and she's manipulated my boy just like she did her son. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing here is him starting to realize, holy crap, Hamnet was right. I'm low-key being manipulated, I think, by the powers that be.
Yeah, you're so right. Oh, I hadn't even thought about the shoes thing in a while. That's a really good detail that at this point, Gregor's wearing Hamnet's shoes and he's like learning about Hamnet's pacifism and like thinking about it more. And I have a little bit of notes like later on too.
Loki just committed a war crime.
Right.
For the sake of something that's not even there. That's not even the actual cure. It's very like thematically like circular, and I'm glad it came to that.
Yeah. I'm getting like chills right now. That's amazing. Even though Gregor knows he was fighting to save what he thought was the cure to the plague, he still feels terrible, because even though he went into Rager mode and killed a bunch of ants, he couldn't save the Starshade. Even Hamnet was forced to fight, despite the fact that he didn't believe fighting solves anything. Gregor tries to think of what they could have done to avoid the violence, but he decides all the different species would have had to agree on a solution a while ago for it to work. On top of everything, the Starshade might not even be the cure after all, so killing and dying for it was all pointless anyway. The narration says, "The more he thought, the more his mind reeled in confusion. We were right to fight. It was wrong to fight. We had to fight. It was pointless to fight. He simply did not know where he stood, and it made him feel crazy. No wonder Hamnet had run off into the jungle." I love how much Gregor is just like grappling with this and trying to think through what would have had to happen for everything to turn out okay. And he's like realizing that it's so much bigger than just like him and his fellow like questers doing something different. He's thinking
it's bigger than a hike in the woods.
Yeah. It's like all of these species would have had to come to an agreement on a lot of different things like a while ago, and it's like he's kind of getting lost in this spiral of like the chain reaction of all of this like political drama that is happening in the Underland.
Like he's trying to like literally figure out like multiple centuries like long like political like discourse that an 11-year-old, I think freshly 12, is just not going to be able to finish and fix on a bat ride home. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, he's like totally, his brain is just like he's having like a Jimmy Neutron brain blast of like, how could we have fixed this?
No, for real. He's like, he's like Charlie Day with the big, huge, like the drawing board. He's like, how exactly do we solve centuries long conflict in efforts to save everyone? I'm 11. I have $3.
Yeah. And he kind of like, I think he was thinking about like a similar thing earlier too, when he was like Ripred was like snapping his teeth at Boots to make it like so that she was scared of him, and he was like, what, you want her to go up and like pet rats? And Gregor is thinking like, well, yeah, no, it's like safer if she doesn't do that, but also if we like teach each other to be afraid of each other since we're young, like nothing's ever gonna get better. And he kind of just like in that scene is like, well, we don't have time to unpack that, so let's just move on.
Like, no, we should unpack that. What do you mean don't unpack that? If anything, let's unpack that right now during the quest. We will figure out the conflict on the way.
Yeah.
And by the time we come, like, we can be friends by the end of this. We should unpack that. We should not be teaching our kids to be scared of like rats, and rats should not be teaching their kids to be scared of humans. But at the same time,
yes,
regalians are going to regale you.
Yeah. And like what he's coming to the conclusion in this too is like, the species have to come to the same agreement at the same time for it to work. It's not just like this one-sided thing. And I think that that's spelled out even more explicitly like at the end of the last book. Yeah, I'm really excited to keep like digging into this theme as Gregor like grapples more and more with it.
Yeah, because there's two ways this can go. We could actually have true, genuine peace. Like, apparently it's been alluded to, but apparently that doesn't seem to last very long. Or we could have this, like, bastardized, almost Henry-esque idolization of what he expects harmony and unity within the Underland to be. So it
Mm.
really could go a couple ways.
Mm-hmm. The group finally arrives in Regalia, but they're stopped by guards. They're happy to see Luxa is alive, but the group can't enter the city until they're tested for the plague. Luxa reminds the guards that she overrules whatever orders they were given and demands to be let through. They fly across Regalia, and people on the ground point up at them, recognizing Aurora. The bats skid into the high hall, and Luxa tells some more guards to get the flyers to the hospital. She and Gregor hurry to address the council with Hazard, Boots, and Temp in tow. In the council room, Dr. Naviv is presenting glass vials of orange liquid to the council, which includes Vicus, Solivet, and Nerissa. When they see Luxa, everyone gasps and starts to stand up, but Luxa orders them to sit and listen. Okay, she's like such a badass in this scene.
Yeah, I was like, yo, the whole time, like, I'm expecting, like, I don't know if you've seen, like, what's it called, Helsing Abridged, but there's this scene where, like, Alucard, like, kicks open the door to, like, this theme song, and, like, I'm imagining her just, like, kicking open, like, the big stone doors with, like, the questers in tow, and, like, the song, like, I'm a bitch, I'm a lover, and it's just, like, and she's just like, I'm here, I'm a queen, and I'm here to just set some shit straight, like, you guys are going down, you, points at, like, Naveeb, done goof. And I want that
Mm-hmm.
ass. Like, and I'm ready for it. It's such an awesome moment. It's so badass.
She's the best. Also, just like telling the guards, like, well, the guards are like, well, we had orders, and she's like, well, I overrule those orders, so.
Like, do you know who you're talking to? I'm Queen. I'm Queen Luxa. Like, I'm here. I'm that girl. I'm the HBIC. Like, do you know who I am? Like, you just said my name. Like, move.
Yeah, she's just like the best. I love how she's been dead to the Regalians for like months. Like they have no idea where she's been. And she just shows up and starts immediately, like you said, like kicking down doors and just like telling everyone to shut up and sit down.
Period. She's like, it's me. I'm here. Deal with it.
Luxa tells Naviv that the Starshade was destroyed by cutters and asks her what she thinks of that. Naviv isn't worried though, because the labs have been working on a cure of their own, and what they've tested on the plague victims has worked so far. Gregor is relieved to hear that his mom and Ares are all right, and the council is happy too. That's when Luxa cracks the whole case wide open with a badass interrogation of Naviv. Luxa accuses her of creating the plague and infecting Ares. Naviv cracks and admits there was an accident, but tries to say it was no one's fault. Luxa says that Naviv sent the questers to the Vineyard of Eyes to cover up the fact that she had the cure all along. Naviv begins to get hysterical, saying that she was only following orders. Gregor notices that some of the council members don't look stunned, but afraid, and he realizes that they knew what was going on the whole time.
Ooh.
Vicus orders some guards to arrest Naviv and take the vials of the cure to the hospital right away. The chapter ends with Luxa stopping him and ordering them to send the cure to the Nars first because she gave Ripred her word, and no one dares to defy her. She is so amazing.
She is, like I said, she's that girl. She really is like, and she's that young woman. She is a woman in this scene here. She shows more than anything that she deserves to be in the position that she's inheriting here.
Mm-hmm.
One thing about Dr. Naviv and all that, I feel for Dr. Naviv. Like, I'm one of the weirdos who feels for Dr. Naviv.
No, I'm with you, yeah.
I'm a huge Resident Evil fan. And this very much reminds me of like Dr. Birkin, like Sherry Birkin, like the Birkin family, and them having to develop the T virus, this bioweapon, which is what this was. This is a government issued bioweapon, like by the military in collaboration with Regalian government to try to take out their enemy. And it backfired on them. And unfortunately, those who were just in it for the science, you know, just trying to be the best scientists that they can for the country that they work for and live for and are loyal to, are unfortunately being thrown under the bus by certain particular higher ups. And when you see that some of the higher up council members aren't surprised, but more so afraid, it makes you really wonder how deep the contention, not only for the Nars, but for the current rule of whatever this royal family is currently doing.
Yeah, it runs so deep. Like, we're in a tangled web right now of, like, political intrigue.
war is one thing, but like this made me think, like this particular passage made me think about like, I don't think Regalia thrives on peace. I feel like
Mm-mm.
Regalia very much is a war country. It very much like that's its biggest exporter is like war
Absolutely.
and like expansion. So like to me, it's like if there's not going to be like interspecies conflict, I can only imagine that like within Gregor's absence or anything like that, there's this constant quelling of civil war, like within factions who are currently with Regalia as it's being ran, or those who believe it should be under new leadership.
Ooh, yeah, that would be so interesting if we got more of that. Because we never really talk to, like, the common person of Regalia. We kind of just hang out in the palace mostly. And I want to know, like, what do the citizens think of this?
Like what does the like we see how the members of the Fount feel about the palace people. So I would love to know more about like you're right about how these people feel about the current rule. Like, okay, like sure the government is gonna okay the giving of the cure to the Nars, but what's the implications of that for the citizens of Regalia? Like
Mm,
what are they gonna feel about that? How are you gonna be okay with that as a citizen watching your government just give this cure to these people, even after discovering that the entire thing was meant to take your enemy out? Like it's a very complicated subject just to be a citizen there.
mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, there's, like, so many layers. And Naviv is, like, such an interesting character that she's just wrapped up in this. And I think I have some more notes about her later when we learn about her fate. But yeah, anything else about chapter 25 before we get into 26?
Just what a beautiful emotional chapter this
Mm-hmm.
was. Just up and down roller coaster. You get your sad moments, you get your semi-triumphant moments, you get your introspective, like existential crisis moments, as you're gonna get in your Gregor, in your Overlander, Underlander, altercations. But just I could not be more excited that Luxa just came into her own even more so in this chapter. That was my biggest takeaway was her
Mm-hmm.
truly becoming the queen that she is going to be going forward. Oh yeah, and fuck Paul Bomer. You broke my heart.
Yeah, yeah, for real. Could not agree
I say that
more.
with love.
Yeah, same. Chapter 26 starts with Luxa leading everyone to a room with couches so they can rest. Hazard has not let go of her hand this entire time, which I think is so cute.
Adorable. I love him so much.
Gregor tells Luxa she did great in the council room, but she's clearly upset. Vicus and Nerissa enter, and Luxa asks, "How will we survive this, Vicus? The retaliations from our enemies, and our shame." He says they'll try to make amends by giving back land and sending supplies, and he hopes they can learn from their shame, but it's good to have Luxa back. She asks Nerissa how it was being queen, and Nerissa hands over the crown, saying it fits Luxa better, and she has no idea how Luxa can handle such a dreadful job. I think that is what makes the scene with Luxa like bursting into the council room so much better is that we have had to have Nerissa as queen for so long that we've gotten used to her as like her and Luxa are definitely like polar opposites to like make each other seem more, like Luxa is so much better at being queen compared to Nerissa.
Yeah, one of the things that I noticed is again, I love Nerissa, another one of those characters. Nerissa and Hazard, again, happen to be my two favorite characters because there's so much that you could do with them that I would love to see them expanded. Like you can't give me a girl who's prophetic and a Halflander child and be like, yep, two more books. That's
I
it. There's
agree.
two more books worth of content with them. And I'm like, okay, cool. And yeah, it's definitely one of those things that you see with that previous scene is how much like into being a queen that like Luxa embodies. And I think more than ever with what Nerissa knows, being the abilities that she may be confirmed or not confirmed to have, is that I wouldn't want to be a queen and have the knowledge of what I know either. I wouldn't be able to take it, especially based off of how the rest of the council thinks she's a nut, how Rip Red thinks she's a nut. Like I could imagine the respect levels also had to have been very obvious there, which is again super crazy because we're talking about children here, like in leadership, which is something like I can't wrap my head around. Like the problematic nature of a bunch of adults in a nation being led by the wills of a child, which again, she's a woman, she stepped into her womanhood. I'm with that. But again,
Mm-hmm.
children.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, yeah, it's great. I love Nerissa just like handing back the crown, like, here, take this, I don't want it.
Like she's allergic to the gold. She's like, get this off my head, girl, my hair.
Nerissa greets Hazard, and Hazard repeats what Luxa told him about them being siblings. Gregor realizes Hazard's probably never been inside a building before, which is honestly wild. Vicus welcomes him and asks about Hamnet, and Hazard says he died. Luxa says, "We shall have to hold him very carefully in our hearts," which is a concept that comes up again in the next book, and also in the book after that. And it's just like so powerful every time. It gets me.
I just feel like that's so like I don't the things that I have to say about that enough is just like you just lost your son, bro. Like
Mm-hmm.
but you lost your son a while ago because your wife was wilding. But like the pain that must come from that, I don't think there was a whole lot of reaction to Hamnet's death other than from Hazard, Luxa, unless we're about to come up on that. Did Vicus really react all that intensely other than what we just learned?
Yeah, I thought about that too while I was taking my notes for this chapter, is that Vicus is kind of just like, when he hears that Hamnet died, he's kind of just like, all right, moving on. And I think it must be that he's just like so concerned about like what is happening with the plague and the cure, and he's probably,
It's hard to compartmentalizing
he's
it.
probably like compartmentalizing to like try and just like make it through and like help Regalia first, and then probably more in Hamnet after. It's interesting because Vicus is such a kind character, but he also is not.
Kind, but not too affectionate.
Yeah, he's one of the more like emotionally vulnerable characters, but even then it's like, I'm thinking back to when he is in the first book telling Gregor about how Luxa's parents were killed by rats, and Vicus doesn't mention that he's talking about his own daughter. He just refers to it as like Luxa's mother died. Like, Gregor doesn't find out that Vicus is Luxa's grandfather until the end of that book.
It makes me wonder what their relationship with the unknown, like the unnamed king or the unnamed male that married his mother was.
Oh, interesting.
Do we know the name of the man that married Judith?
No.
Like, it makes me wonder what was that relationship was, because like they said that he was a stern king in some regards and a lax one in others, but it makes me wonder if how he was stern and how he was lax has anything to do with the relationship between him and Vicus and Solovet, because I'm not understanding why the family seems so disconnected outside of them just being focused on being leaders. I don't know.
Yeah, that is such a good question, and I literally just like want to walk up to Suzanne Collins's house and just like bang on her door and be like, give me the answers to these questions, but we'll never know.
Why don't the Regalian royal family love each other? What happened?
Yeah, I mean, they have so much drama. Like, I guess it would make sense that they have like some issues with just kind of like distancing themselves.
Judith must have been really important because it seems like it fractured as soon as she died.
Mm-hmm, yeah. And I'm sure that Hamnet's disappearance like fractured things as well, yeah. Vicus asks how Gregor is, but Gregor's only interested in the plague victims. Nerissa stays with Temp and the kids to eat while Vicus takes Gregor and Luxa to the hospital. He explains how the plague victims have been improving over the last few days with the cure, but they got worse after Gregor left. Before they get to the plague quarantine hallway, Gregor stops Luxa to warn her how bad their friends will look. Luxa tries to brush this off, but when he tells her how he threw up after seeing Ares and how Susanna said some people faint, she takes it more seriously. But she has to see her friends, so Gregor suggests she hold his hand and squeeze it if she feels sick, and I'm like, wow, Gregor, okay.
Middle school me, now I'm queer, but middle school me, before I even knew, was like, yes, Riz King, like, pull that, yes, there we go, finally, some semblance of what I've been waiting for this entire book, thank the Lord. But it's like, no, actually, this is actually a very serious moment. As cute as it is very cute. It's very middle school cute. It's very like budding relationship cute. It's one of my favorite, most cinematic moments. Like, it can be comedy as well as being like an emotional moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it is funny too, like later we'll get to it, but it's like very emotional, and he's like offering her support, and it's like there's so many layers to it, and just their relationship is so good. I love this moment.
He's trying to be that warrior, like, listen.
Yeah, I just love that he's like, here, hold my hand, like he's got moves. So they hold hands, and they don't just hold hands, they intertwine their fingers together, which is like deluxe hand holding.
Like, come on. Like, who intertwines fingers, girl? Like, who taught you? Come on. Gregor knew exactly what he was doing. Even before I think he knew what he was doing, he knew what he was
Yeah,
doing.
absolutely. They see Ares first. His fur has fallen out and his skin is covered with purple bumps, but Gregor is happy to see him out of bed. He starts to say, "Hey, look, Ares is on his ow," because Luxa squeezes his hand super tight.
Obsessed, like this moment right here, just like act like almost like spraining. Like I imagine, because I remember like when I used to go to Halloween Horror Nights, and me and my partner, he used to do the same thing. He would squeeze my hand like so tight during like going through like Halloween Horror Night houses.
Aww.
And it's just one of those things that you can't really avoid. You can't really avoid it. It's just like genuine fear is genuine fear. But this would be like a mix of what? Fear, disgust, like holding back, like genuine like horror and terror at seeing a friend being like horrifically worse for wear.
Right, yeah.
It's such a tragedy. Ares just can't catch a break. You guys say this a lot and throughout this series, but
Mm-hmm.
my God, Ares just what does Suzanne have against Ares? What is the beef there? That's another interview question. Suzanne, what did Ares do?
Yeah, yeah. I'm going up to her house and tossing pebbles at her window in the middle of the night, and when she opens the window, I'm like, "What do you have against Ares?"
I'm holding up fan art of like drawn by like AL Doodles on Tumblr. Like, look at this face. How could you do this to this? How could you do this to this genuine, sweet, adorable bat? Who are you?
For real. Gregor reassures Luxa that Ares is a lot better than he was before, but she's frozen. Vicus agrees that he's getting better and knocks on the glass to get his attention. Ares hops toward them, but has to stop to catch his breath. Gregor tells Luxa to smile and signals to Ares that Aurora is alive and receiving treatment too. They move on to Howard and Andromeda, who are sleeping. A purple bump on Howard's skin bursts, and Luxa squeezes the feeling out of Gregor's fingers.
Okay, so when this scene happened, I had to like figure out like what is the overland equivalent to this? Did anyone do any research as to like the closest symptoms that these are close to? I'm genuinely trying to figure out like what would be the overland equivalent to this.
I'm not sure. I mean, I'm sure that someone out there has like researched this before. I haven't, but I think that the purple bump thing is like a thing from the bubonic plague. Like people would get like the bubos or the purple bumps.
Yeah, because like that just sounds so incredibly vicious as a symptom that unprompted and untouched, that like these boils are just literally bursting on your skin without anyone touching them. Like it seems like not great, not a fun time. Wouldn't want that. And I think about the implications of what it would have meant had the plague gotten to the surface, which is why I think those rats in the earlier chapter were also so vehemently willing to like do what they
Mm.
did to get them down there. Because I think you guys said that there's a possibility that they communicate with the larger ones, right?
Yeah, yeah. That's what we were talking about.
So, in the event that that's a possibility, of course, the smaller rats and smaller beings of the overland would get wind that, hey, there's some really sick shit going on downstairs. And if y'all don't get down here, the overland will deal with some things that I don't even think that the overland is ready to deal with. So it makes me wonder like how deep it would have went had they not gone down there. It's just
Mm-hmm.
what a scary play.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about the fact that the overland rats would have like also been victims to the plague if it had spread.
It takes one New York City rat with the plague.
Yeah, I mean that's like basically exactly how the bubonic plague started. Yeah, it's scary, and this overland, cuz I always thought that the overland rats were just like friends with the underland rats and that's why they were like helping out, but like actually they're invested in this plague getting cured too.
Yeah, it's very much, and like no shade to Grace, because don't get me wrong, Grace is just doing what a mom should be doing. I would be doing the same thing. This place
Mhm.
can suck it. I'm moving. No, but girl, like I don't know what she said she did for work, but like you would have to know that like a plague is a serious deal, and
Mhm.
anything that happens underground can make its way above ground, and how viruses work. Just a little bit of foresight.
Yeah, honestly. Vicus tells them Howard almost died, but he's getting stronger now. Finally, they visit Gregor's mom, who is awake in bed. For a moment, Gregor and his mom just stare at each other, but finally she asks about Boots. Gregor signs to his mom that Boots is eating, and Grace starts crying in relief, which is just like, oh my gosh, my heart.
Yeah, taking away my previous shade thrown at Grace, I love Grace so much as a character that like it has to be her horrifying as a mother, like horrifying as a parent to have to go and a wife to like go through this over and over and over again.
Right.
And then now have to be the reason why your son has to stay down here and go through this again. It has to be like I wouldn't be able to sit in that hospital room. I would be going crazy. So to know that, hey, you're alive, holy crap, my son made it home. Is my daughter okay? Yeah, she's sleeping. Like I would just forget two single tears coming down. Like I would need sedation. Like
Yeah.
I would be a wreck. I'm like, yo, I need to go hug my child. I know I can't hug my child, but I need to go hug my child because, like, holy crap, dude. Also, I have to say that I definitely like headcanon like Grace to particular actresses. Either Taraji P. Henson, I think she'd be an amazing Grace character if we're gonna make Gregor a character of color,
Mm-hmm.
or Kerry Washington from Scandal. I
Oh,
think
yes.
perfect. I could just see them like bedridden, sick in that decrepit like makeup of like with the plague on them. I can just see the tears. Like what a cinematic scene.
Hell yeah. Yeah, it's just like so dramatic, and I love the moment when Gregor and Grace like look at each other and they're just like, oh my god, you're still alive. Like, that's amazing.
There's so much you want to do. You want to hug your mom, you want to kiss your mom. You want like that's a it has to suck for a kid because he's still a child. He's a child. Like he's a
Mm-hmm.
child. And a boy just wants to hug his mom. Like he wants to hug his mommy and he can't hug his mommy. And that's just it's bittersweet. Like she does
Mm-hmm.
such a good job at these bittersweet moments. Like she's so good at that.
Absolutely. Gregor and Luxa move on to go get their own medical help, and Luxa asks how many plague victims there are in the hospital. Vicus says more than 100, with 30 deaths in Regalia and 80 at the Fount. Luxa finally lets go of Gregor's hand when they have to go clean up, but she thanks him for warning her. We get the customary post quest roundup of all of the injuries that Gregor has sustained in this book, which this time include battle wounds from the cutters, scratches from the vines, and acid burned toes from the plant pods.
Bruh.
Just like the way that he accumulates scars throughout this series is so devastating, and like I think the next book starts with him kind of like going over all of the scars that he's gotten and like thinking about how, because like it's summer and he can't wear like short sleeves and stuff, like it really affects his life. It like changes him.
Because like he also used to run track, right?
Right, yeah.
So, like, imagine all of the things that you used to love and used to be able to do. He was clearly somebody who liked to go outside too. So, like, imagine like all your identity like has been taken away from your overland identity has been taken away from you as you know it, right? Like, you not only because you can't wear like particular clothes, but questions will be asked, questions that you can't answer, like
Right.
questions that your parents aren't going to be able to answer. That if CPS has to, like, I think about that all the
Mm-hmm.
time, especially as a foster kid. Like, how do you answer these questions? How do you come up with corroborate a story that sticks long enough to be believable with people ask you about your injuries? You're 11, 12 years old. Look at your toes. You're 11, 12 years old. Look at your body. Like, son, what happened to you?
Right, right. Like any responsible adult who sees that should be like, what's going on? But he can't
Yeah,
tell
like what's
them.
going on? Also, what's wrong with your dad? Why does your dad look like shit now? Also, where's your mom? Like, thank God for Mrs. Cormacy. Like, because there's no way, like, I think about like post 9/11, there's no way that like
Mm-hmm.
he's going to be able to live a normal life the way he receives these injuries. It's just,
Mm-hmm.
it's tragic.
Yeah, no, God bless Mrs. Cormacy for supporting this family. The doctors give Gregor medicine that makes him sleep, and when he wakes up, he's covered in bandages like a mummy. He tries to tug at one, but Marith stops him from reopening his wounds. He tells Gregor that he's been asleep for 16 hours, and the doctors gave him the plague cure while he was still unconscious. Apparently, everyone is getting a dose, because it turned out there was a stockpile of the cure in the caves by Naviv's lab. Marith says that Naviv confirmed what they accused her of at the council meeting. Ares knocked over a container of plague fleas, and both he and Naviv got bitten. She was going to give him the cure the next day, but instead he went to the labyrinth to look for Luxa and Aurora, and that's how the Nars got infected. Marith breaks the news that Naviv was put on trial and executed for high treason very quickly. And I'm kind of wondering, like, if they sped through the trial because the higher-ups who ordered her to make the plague, like, didn't want her revealing their secrets.
Oh, I mean, there's nothing else that could convince me otherwise that was the case, right? Because we learn, I'm sure I think later on we learn that Solovette doesn't really get the same sort of treatment despite being one of the people to orchestrate this.
Right.
So it's very much like it is nothing but a cover up to the nefarious dealings and going ons within certain factions of the higher ups of Regalia, which is why I'm just like, I don't even think after Gregor leaves this place by book 5 that's it. Like, no, this conflict hasn't really been solved. Like, we're talking about bioweapons. We're talking about hundreds of years of being taught to hate each other. And in the previous chapter, we discussed it, but like, I can't see this being fixed just by some plague cure distribution, especially it's been held for so long. You got people in the fount dying, human beings that you're willing to let just die. Regalia is totally willing to let dozens, if not 100 plus human Regalians or fount members die in the name of maintaining a good cover and hopefully not even needing to distribute the plague to the Nars. Would they have distributed it if they would have gotten it under control?
Right, exactly. Like, if it hadn't been an outbreak, like, their goal was to use it as a weapon, so, like, would they have ever given the cure to the Nars? Like, that was the whole point, was that they could use it against the Nars and just choose not to give them the cure.
It's very much like, like the best thing, while it also being the worst thing, was this happening the way that it did. And it also makes me think that, like, every single prophecy that I've read so far is Sandwich calling out his people. Like, he's literally like, y'all, someone's pulling some flaw shit down here, and I can feel it in my bones, and y'all better stop. Like, and they didn't listen to.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna have to go back and, like, look at all of the prophecies, because that's interesting what you said about how, like, Sandwich is trying to tell the Regalians something about themselves in each of the prophecies. I really like that.
It's very much like a chill out. Like, I know I started out, like, it's like at some point I think that's what made him go mad. He's like, I committed horrible atrocities, and like my punishment from whatever is my madness. And before this city that I've created, like, falls, I need to do something about it. And his brain subconsciously just put out these prophetic, like, please chill out. Please don't do these things.
Ooh.
Like, please just try to take it easy. And we're dealing with people who just did not want to do that.
Ooh, I'm definitely going to have to come back to that when we look at the prophecies in the next 2 books. The narration says, Gregor had thought they would lock her up in the dungeon, not kill her. What good did that do? This is a great thing for Gregor to be thinking about, because it's totally in line with what he just learned from Hamnet about how, like, violence and killing is never the solution to something. And he's totally right. Like, what did that solve? Like, killing Neviv, like, that didn't do any good.
What is that, retribution for what? Like y'all all did this. This was a thing that you all decided to do. You're mad at her because she was the one in charge, because she was the one physically handling the things. It's just like, you're right. It's very much just, it's a cover up. It's just a pure, just through and through cover up textbook. And I'm so glad Gregor is starting to notice that.
Yeah. He's starting to, like, see the corruption in Regalia, because it runs so deep. And I really love the part when he's, like, looking at the council members as they're reacting to Luxa accusing Neviv, and he's like, oh wow, some of them aren't surprised, and he's kind of just, like, seeing that for the first time. I love it. Luxa was asleep for the trial, but even if she wasn't, she still couldn't have attended to stop the execution, because Neviv was ordered to create the plague by Solovette, and there would have been a conflict of interest. Solovette probably won't be executed, but she and her secret weapons committee are being confined.
Solovette, girl, my biggest op is Solovette. She's an op. I don't like her. She's a fed. And the fact she has a secret weapons committee. Solovette is Albert Wesker. Solovette is just, I'm trying to figure out, like, I'm trying to figure out her, because, like, either you love your daughter so much that everything you're doing is to avenge her, or you're just so hungry for power that you're willing to conduct funny how she started conducting this plague when Luxa was gone.
Ooh, that is a good point. I hadn't thought of that.
And then something else that you will figure out, like, later on in the series is that she happens to fall ill again later on and is unable to participate in particular activities in later books.
Oh, that's right.
And it makes you wonder who, in their right mind, conveniently enough, would have certain particular key players in a story made sick before a gigantic fight.
Oh, that is so interesting.
And my theory is Solovet did what she needed to do to make them sick. I genuinely believe like Solovet has no problem taking the people out that she needs to take out to do the things that she needs to do because it's a war and Solovet is a war hawk and that was her game. Like she wanted this war more than anything. Like she's a war hawk. She wants to win. She wants to expand. She wants to win against the Nars. So like she has no problem letting her like civilians die. She has no problems forming secret committees while the person who's supposed to be in charge of these things is nowhere to be found. She's an opportunist. I'm anti-Solovet. She's a Fed. She's a op. I'm done. Like
you're so right though. Yeah, no, she's definitely just like the driving force behind this war and all of the violence and corruption. Vicus didn't know about any of this, and he's taking it hard. Gregor and Marith eat some bland hospital food together, and Marith tells him that Luxa left the hospital already to be with Hazard. Gregor says, he's a nice kid, and Marith says sadly, so is his father. and
here we go.
You fucking know what's up.
What's good, sis? Okay. Where do we begin? I'm sure he was, Marith. I'm sure he was. I'm sure he was. I just think of like sad gay soldier boy or sad bi soldier boy running away from his super authoritative family and another gay soldier boy begging him to stay. And just no.
Oh my god.
And the tragedy behind that. And then I think about like Hazard I want Hazard and Marith to have a really awesome relationship.
Oh my god, that would be great.
I think them like not bonding over trauma, but bonding over the memory of such an influential man in both of their lives, a la Buck and Christopher from 911. Like I'm very much like these two are boyfriends. I'm obsessed, and that's your fault. So you did that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, this is like every single thing that Marith and Hamnet say about each other in this book, it feeds my agenda. And just like this one line, like Marith says sadly, so is his father. Like that could mean so much.
Like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean by that? Like, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that, Marith? What do you mean by that? And like Gregor's like, I know what you are.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, there's just like so much there. I could go on, but I think we're gonna have to move on.
Yeah, we're gonna have to move on. I have notes for later on in the series, but it's what else.
Excellent. Gregor isn't sure the doctors will let him leave the hospital, so he sneaks out instead, even though it tugs at his stitches. It's the middle of the night, and he stops by the nursery to check for Boots, but no one's there. So he convinces a guard to take him to Luxa's royal wing, which is like a big fancy apartment she has all to herself. There are a lot of guards around, and eventually they let Gregor in. When asked, Luxa admits that she's had the whole place to herself since her parents died. Even though Gregor's room back home is technically a storage space with no door, Gregor is grateful to share the small apartment with so many people he loves, which I just love the comparison of like Luxa being all alone in this like huge space surrounded by all of this like elegant furniture and whatnot, but like Gregor is grateful for his like tiny little apartment where nothing works and like the pipes have lead in it and whatnot, but he's just like happy to have his family.
It's very Prince and Pauper. It's very a beautiful juxtaposition. And this is the second time we get sort of a juxtaposition like that, with the first one that I see being when they first collapse on the couch, like when they first both collapse on the couches in front of each other. Another awesome like juxtaposition scene of just Gregor throwing himself, like his whole body laid out on the couch. And then you have like Luxa sinking with baby Hazard. And now you have like, you get to see like where Luxa, I think Luxa said that she doesn't really like look forward to the next day. She considers success that like being able to close her eyes and open them again. So it's like the last person that probably shared that space with her had to have possibly been Henry.
Oh, you're right.
So like that was it for her. Like if Vicus isn't staying there, if Solivet aren't staying there, and it's she has her own private wing of like, it just makes you wonder like what are the relationships like that? You don't have visitors, you don't have friends, you don't. It has to be so
Right.
lonely. It's just incredibly lonely. And I think you're right. You nailed like such a good juxtaposition there. Like he's so thankful for having this family that is so close knit, and Luxa just doesn't seem to really know anything about that.
Yeah. Luxa's happy that Hazard will live with her now, but it'll be hard for him since he's never lived indoors before. Which I still think is like such a wild thing. Like, can you imagine up until 7 years old, you've never set foot inside a building? Like, you've never had like furniture or like a floor?
Like you have to like constant noise of bugs compared to I don't know what the noise of Regalian suburbia would be like, but just the juxtaposition of like I mean I don't even know what light would be like because it's constant flame torches like in Regalia I imagine and lanterns I think, but like what was his vision like in the jungle? Like
Mm.
it has to definitely you're definitely right the change between constantly being indoors having food that's probably I'm assuming his diet has to be completely different now,
Oh, I
like you're gonna have
bet.
more cooked food like fresher water, like it has to be like just a huge change as someone who's in foster care. Yeah, he has to be dealing with like a huge like almost I'm not gonna say traumatic but like I mean yeah traumatic but
Mm-hmm.
just an overwhelming like change in scenery that is
Absolutely.
can be crippling in some instances, and we learn that it doesn't really, but you would think it would.
Yeah, yeah, it's so drastic. And like he's literally never seen anything like this before. He's probably like, yeah, he's probably completely overwhelmed.
Imagine all of the people like
Mm-hmm.
imagine just seeing that many people in one area. Like
That's right.
how do you even navigate seeing that many people? You come like you've never experienced that many people before in your life, and now you're seeing people in mass. It has to be a huge, like almost reclusing or like reclusive experience as a child.
Oh yeah, I bet. He's probably like so overwhelmed. Luxa reveals that before Hazard fell asleep, he told her, "My father ran away from here to the jungle. He ran away from all the fighting, but it followed him anyway." Gregor says that's the same thing his grandmother told him, that he could try to run from the prophecy, but it would find him anyway. Luxa shows Gregor a blue crystal shaped like a fish, and he remembers that it's from her first flight outside the city with Hamnet. Gregor asks if Vicus is okay, and Luxa says he's devastated by Solivet's actions, but he's still being a diplomat and organizing aid missions. Luxa tells Gregor he needs to be getting home, and he agrees, saying they'll go in a few days when his mom is well enough to travel. The chapter ends with Luxa saying, "But Gregor, that will not be for many months." And that's the end of the chapter.
You what?
It's so dramatic. Ugh.
Yeah, cue SpongeBob meme.
You what?
What a like a few months? Like, girl, no. Like my
Yeah.
dad, y'all is going to talk about it the next chapter, but the implications of that, like Grace
Right.
is such a matriarch. Like, she's the matriarch of the family. Like she's held it down
Mm-hmm.
since he was 9. Like before
Mm-hmm.
that, even maybe like to have to lose the one person who is like the main one person that is like it's like in Shameless if you lost Fiona, like
Yes.
you're losing the tenement person that holds things together. And for Gregor to already have that thought process in his mind and just immediately think about the implications of not having his mom in the Overland, it's just you feel that fear, you feel that fright.
Yeah, because the book definitely does a great job of setting up like how important Grace is and how devastating it would be if she like got sick and then she does get sick and it's like a really big deal and then this reveal that she's like not going to be better anytime soon and it's just gonna like keep affecting Gregor. Like that sucks.
Yeah, like you won the quest, but like you didn't though.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
It's like you did the thing that you were supposed to do. Like you did, just like the past 2 quests. Like you did what you were supposed to do, and in some weird way, everything came full circle, and everyone got to go home. That's not the case now. Regalia has now taken more of you by the end of this.
Yeah.
One of the things that my partner had brought up is that personally, he feels as if Gregor has been down in the Underland since his dad fell down there. A part of Gregor, of who made Gregor who he was, based off of how he described describes his dad, fell down there. Like, so a piece of Gregor's already down there, and it just seems with every book, Regalia and the Underland claims more pieces of him every single time. In the second book, they take boots. Like, they're just taking small bits and pieces of him every single book. And, oh boy.
You're so right. That is such a good way of putting it. Like, I haven't heard it said in like that many words exactly, but that's exactly it. Like, every single book, he just gets more and more entangled with the Underland, and they like take more and more from him, and he just has to keep dealing with that. Yeah, no, I really like how that is said. That's really good.
And by book 5, you want me to believe that all of them is back up there? Like, no. Like, no. Y'all took so much of him that's still down there. And the fact that y'all expect him to be okay after that is insane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. These chapters were just like so intense. We got great Luxa moments, great Gregor moments. We got a little bit of Marith in there.
Iconic had like heartbreaking Hazard moments. Everyone got a chance to shine in such an amazing way that made their character arc so much more deeper. And it was just based off of a reveal and the fallout from that reveal. It's such a good way to wrap things up before the epilogue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because this like final chapter is gonna be kind of like a wrap up of this story, and then it's gonna lead into the next one. And yeah, I'm so excited. Oh my gosh.
Just what an amazing, just what's cinematic, just so many scenes here I can see on screen. And it just shows that Suzanne's expertise and experience with writing things to be adapted to screen, like shows, like the sitting across from each other on the couch moment, the walking in and confronting Dr. Naviv about the cure moment, the just the moment of trying to get Hazard to come along with them. Like, there's so much cinematic moments where I'm just like, what is going on here? Like, why are we not like, who does not want to make money? Who doesn't want to make money off of this series? It just, there's so many moments that are just perfectly ready to be adapted. And I'm just, Suzanne, if you want to make some money, more money, love. I know you're like borderline billionaire, but girl, let's go for a three-peat and get this series adapted, because this book shows more than ever that things are getting real. And this would be a movie in which, like, I guess to liken it to Azkaban, things start getting real. Like, it gets it gets real in this book, and like it gets more real in the next one. And just, but this is the one that signifies, okay, like Luxa is the queen. She's becoming a woman. Like Gregor just went on this huge lifelong journey to save his mom. That's like a man thing to do. Like, you grew up way too fast. You guys are coming into your own now, and things are about to get a lot more real for you. And you notice it in these particular chapters, how real things are starting to get.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's just so cinematic. I can picture every scene perfectly in my mind. It's great.
Boots and Hazard cuddling.
Yeah,
Come on.
So cute.
Like, come on. That's such a perfect little scene of just like camera pans over to just like sleeping toddlers, and just it's such a just a thematic thing that I'd love to see. Someone draw that.
Yes, please, someone, anyone. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining me, Mike.
Oh my gosh, what a fun experience this was. Again, I'm just going to say, I know I've been rambling, but from a fan's perspective, I said this to you guys in a conversation, but I just want to say it to you and your frequent cast members. Thank you guys so much for what it is that you guys are doing for this series. You guys have brought together such a sparse community together in this tight-knit section, especially on Tumblr as well. Like, you guys are doing pretty much like the work of like 1,000 people and just yourself and the small people that you have that you bring on. I just couldn't be more proud as a fan to be a part of this and to witness, such passionate people taking the time to go through the entire book series, chapter by chapter, and just break it down and introduce new people to such an amazing series, and just remind older fans who've grown up with the series why it's so amazing in the first place. So you should be incredibly proud of the work that you've put in, because we are. So thank you so much for that.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm smiling so big that warms my heart. Oh my gosh.
You're very welcome.
Oh yeah, no, thank you so much for joining me. This was super fun. Is there anything that you want to like plug at the end here? Like, where can people find you?
I make music. So if you guys want to find me on Instagram or Spotify, you can look up my most recent single called "All of Me" by Jaspin featuring The Ray. You can also follow my Tumblr at Who is The Ray, and then follow my partner's Tumblr user Over and Underland on Tumblr. They're currently
Wait,
working
holy
on.
shit! I did not know that that was you guys.
Yeah, that's my partner.
Holy
That's my
fuck!
partner.
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious.
I did not know that that was you. Oh my god.
Yeah, oh, that's my partner. They're also huge fans. Like we linked up years ago, and they've been super supportive of me. I went through a thing in January. They picked up the audiobooks and they fell in love with the series, and we kind of got together to try to make a little account together. I mostly do music and stuff. He's the author, he's the writer, he's the individual that you probably been speaking to because he said he spoke with you at some point. But yeah, that's him. Follow my partner at Over and Underland on Tumblr if you want to find some hilarious overland memes, risque overland memes, and some awesome fics like Do No Harm, which is the a brand new Hamerith fic that you guys can go check out now.
It was really good. I read it. Oh my gosh.
She was like, I require it? Hello?
Yeah! Oh my gosh. No, it's so great. Oh, that's so great. I did not realize that that was you guys. Wow, I'm a big fan.
I will let them. He is just equally as a fan of you, as I imagine you are of him. He's so thankful that you guys let me come on and speak about this. And I'm thankful too. You guys are super, super sick, and I'm looking forward to talking to you guys again.
Oh, thank you so much. Next week's episode will cover the final chapter of Curse of the Warmbloods, and after that, we'll be taking our between books break. Right now, I have June 17th marked as the date of our return for Marks of Secret, but we might have a little bonus episode in there somewhere, so who's to say?
Ooh.
I'll let you know on social media if anything changes. You can find us on Tumblr and Instagram at Return to Regalia, all one word. Thank you for listening, and until next time, fly you high.
Ooh, I always wanted to say this. Fly you high.